I won't be rude and ask how much money it took to get to that point.
Well, I don't mind telling you, because a lot of my friends now have been very poor for a very long time, and it actually cost £750,000.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this special feature, a sit-down talk with the creator, the founder of the Multimac. We get to hear just how much time, effort and money went into creating this revolutionary, free and for across all-in-one child seat solution. So grab a cuppa, sit back and enjoy this DadCars special.
Right, so Kevin, thank you so much for inviting me up today
Nice
to
to
the
see
Multimac HQ. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. So I am a dad then, a father of four, who refuses to conform and compromise and have something boring. And I've managed to find a way of doing both, have an exciting car and, use it with my children and make memories. But you took things one step further, didn't you? Not only did you seek something out and seek a solution, you made a solution yourself. So I would love to hear the origin stories of how Multimac came about. Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Well, interesting enough, my brother-in-law has an identical family to us, a boy and three girls, and he had them slightly before us, and he was saying, we're expecting a fourth child, I don't know what to do for a car, and he wasn't, he was a junior doctor at that point, and I said to him, why don't you buy an old Granada or an Opel Senator, which are pretty cheap and are very wide, and get a specialist trimmer to actually make four seats in the back. And he bought a VW Transporter, and that was the end of it. We subsequently had a fourth child, and although we had a couple of seven-seaters, they're not ideal, as anyone who's got one will tell you. You've got a child in the back you can't get to. So if there's any emergency, choking, whatever, you can't get to them, and you lose your boot space. So it occurred to me, as I'd said to my brother-in-law, any back seat that will take three rugby players ought to take four children. We just needed an infrastructure. So I made one. And we went, there was an article about it in the Daily Telegraph, actually.
Okay, yeah.
And they got a lot of phone calls from people, and we went to BSI to crash test it. And therein lay the problem, because the legislation for child seats is obviously written around single child seats.
Yeah.
No one had envisaged this. And all the rules are pretty prescriptive, really. And the fundamental thing is that the seat that you test your child seat on is only 800 wide. So when you put the Multimac on, it overhangs at both sides. And also, there was no protocol for testing multiple child seats. But I agreed with BSI that we would do it with a 12-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old and a newborn. So all the weight was on one side. We did a crash test, and of course the thing slewed around. And during the crash test, the dummy's head's allowed to move 550 millimeters, which isn't very much. And the chest decelerations have to be below 55 G. Because obviously if you strapped your child solid to the car and then stopped, all the internal organs would move forward, so there has to be a certain softness. Obviously it didn't work the first time, so I modified it and took it back, and it nearly worked, and we kept on going. And the seventh iteration...
So, I mean, at this point, most normal people would have sort of thought, okay, look, it's a good idea, but you kept pushing.
Well, funnily enough, British Standards is a very British establishment.
Okay, yeah.
And we finally passed the test on the 11th of the 11th, 1999. And when you do a crash test, you load up the seat, and then you have to stand behind a sort of explosion-proof door on what's all happening. And you instigate the test. It's changed now. And so this process starts whereby the test seat is pulled back on rails, pulling some rubber bungees, simply as that. And then it's released and goes slamming forward and stops. And cameras measure everything. So you see it all through the door, but you don't actually know what's happened until all the slow-mos.
I've seen them online, the slow-mos of the dummies,
And you measure it and gauge it. And somewhat embarrassingly, as this sled was coming back and the siren was going boo, 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 we realised it was 11 o'clock and everyone at British Standard should be standing up. So attention because it was your Remembrance Day, but we couldn't stop it.
Right, yeah.
Did the crash. And measured everything, and it worked. I'd modified it quite a bit. I had energy-absorbing legs, which we still have, which is quite important. And just to go on from that, if you have a regular child seat, it will normally be for a prescribed age group, 0 to 18 months, 18 months to 3 years, 3 to 6, 6 to 12. So the actual mass range in it isn't terribly large, and you can design it to do what it's meant to do. Now, with a Multimac, you could have one newborn in it, or you could have 4 12-year-olds.
Right, yeah.
And it's got to work in all those scenarios. So in one case, you've probably got 6 kilograms, and on the other, you've got 144 kilograms.
Yeah.
So if you make it strong enough for the 144 kilograms, then when you've got the single child in there, it will be so stiff that you'd ruin the internal organs. And if you made it soft enough for the single child, then when you've got your 4 12-year-olds, you just go through the windscreen.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of energy-absorbing features which you can't see. I mean, I've heard people say it looks like a park bench, but, you know, underneath it...
Well, I mean, I've seen some of the trimming options that you've got here. I mean, that's a BMW M Sport Special, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, so in theory, somebody could trim them however they wanted to match the actual
Absolutely,
interior
so, and
of their
quite
car.
good fun. When we had done all the measurements and it had actually passed, all the dummies had moved less than 550 millimetres, the chest accelerations were all below 55G, and they said, we can't give you an approval. And I said, why not? And they said, could you modify the test rig? And as I mentioned, there's a chair that goes round on rails, and there was no floor. So because I had energy-absorbing legs, I'd made a steel structure, painted it yellow so it all matched, and every time I went down, we bolted the structure on, did the test. It's up there, actually. I haven't been able to throw it away.
Oh, wow, okay.
And they said, you've modified the test rig. And I said, every car I've been in has a flaw.
Yeah.
And they said, but it doesn't say in the legislation anything about a flaw. I said, precisely, it doesn't say there can't be a flaw. And they said, well, we can't give you an approval. So I said, why didn't you mention this 2 years and £50,000 ago?
Wow, okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about this. Couldn't have been cheap.
No, it got,
going through all of this.
It got even worse. And they said, well, quite frankly, we never thought you'd make it work, so we didn't think we'd have this discussion.
Wow. Yeah, so basically penalising you for, you were thinking of something ahead of the time, right?
Well, interestingly enough, a lot of child seats have legs, and so the test rigs all have flaws.
Yeah.
But they didn't then. So we've patented the energy-absorbing legs, of course. So I said to them, who's your boss? And they said, Vehicle Certification Agency. I said, what's the man's name? And they said, Mr. Perrott. So I called, and Mr. Perrott, I said, I explained, and there's a deadly silence on the line. And he said, I can't believe that British Standards have been working with you for 2 years, and they haven't mentioned it to me. And I said, well, that's not really my problem, is it? I didn't know you existed until 5 minutes ago. Yeah. If I send you all the information, could you have a look at it for me? And he said, okay. So I sent him all the information, all the photographs, all the test reports, etc. And he called me 2 weeks later and said, I'm sorry, I don't have the authority to waive this legislation, so, you know, you can't do anything. So I said to him, who's your boss? And they said, Department of Transport. I said, who? So he gave me a name. So I called them and they said, yes, come, we'd like to talk about this. So come to Westminster. So I got my passes so I could go to Westminster and met the minister guy, and he said, this sounds like a very worthy article, you know, there's a need for it. So I will discuss it with my opposite numbers in Europe. He said, obviously, like the Queen's speech, there's lots of things we can be talking about. We're not wondering what to do. So if I table it formally, it's likely to take years. So I'll just speak to them informally and see if there's any you know, will to pursue it. He said, meanwhile, I've only just seen you, and I don't really know a lot about child seats, so I would like an expert opinion, and I'd like you to go and see Adrian Roberts at the Transport Research Laboratory, and he can report back to us. So I said, okay, that's fine, thanks. And he said, and one other thing, have you thought of testing in Holland? They seem to pass anything there.
Okay.
So I went back. phoned Adrian Roberts. And he said, oh, yes, come and see us, come and see us. So I went to see him and showed him the seat in the car. And he said, this is fantastic. This solves so many problems. I can't believe they wouldn't give you an approval. And he said, obviously it's pretty expensive, so why don't you see if you can get the British approval, which is running alongside the European approval, because at least you can sell them and make some money while you're sorting out this European thing. And you should speak to Beverly Barrett. She's the secretary of the chairman of the British Standards Committee. So I phoned Beverly Barrett and relayed this story to her. And she said, Mr. Macliver, our next meeting is in 10 days. There's no way I can get this on the agenda. So I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I didn't know you existed until 5 minutes ago. But could you have a word with your chairman? So she said, okay, and she'd call me back. And she subsequently called me back and said, I've spoken to my chairman, and he said, we will discuss it at the next meeting. So I said, that's wonderful, can I come? I said, no, it's a closed meeting. I said, well, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and seeing something's worth 1,000 pictures. So I'm quite happy to come and sit outside BSI House all day if people want to come and have a look. I'll have a word with my chairman. And she subsequently called me the day before the meeting and said, my chairman has said that he's going to give all the delegates 20 minutes extra for their lunch break, and they can come down and look at it if they want, but it's not compulsory. So I said, great. So I went home and said, Catherine, my wife, great, we're in. So we went with 2 cars. We had a 4-seater and a 3-seater. And in my mind, it was going to be like a sort of village garden fete, you know. We'd be down there and the sun would be shining and people would come and have a look. But in fact, it was absolutely howling gale and pouring with rain, and we were down there. And these various delegates came up and had a look. And these committees are comprised people from retailers like Marks and Spencer's and people like Britex and Maxi Cosi and the AA and all these various people who variously came up and either said, yeah, well, okay, and the car seat manufacturer said it'll never work. And eventually the chairman came up and he was a little guy, he said, hello. Very difficult for us, these grey areas, you know, we like them black and white, so I'm not sure we'll be able to help you, but have you thought of testing in France? They seem to pass anything there.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
They duly wrote to me and said, thank you for coming, but we can't really help you. So I called Adrian and said, well, that's a bit of a dead loss, you know, they are as enthusiastic as the test house is. So do you know anybody in Holland or France? And I'll perhaps go and do it there. And he said, well, actually, we would like to do it. We're very impressed with it. And although at the Transport Research Laboratory we can test cars and trains and aeroplanes and buses, we don't have a license for child seats. But we could get one. So if you were happy to work with us, you know, we'd really like to do it. So would you like to come and meet our management? So I went along to meet the management, and they said, yeah, this looks fine. We're very ethical. We won't only test it on a test rig. We will put it in cars and crash test the cars, and you'll have to buy the cars.
Oh, wow.
I said, fine. And they said, okay, well, we'll see if we can arrange a meeting and we can get the approval. And they subsequently called me and said, okay, we've got a meeting, so there will be BSI there, vehicle certification of the Department of Transport and us, and you'll have to pay everybody's expenses. I said, how's that likely to cost us? Probably a couple of thousand. So, you know, in for a penny, in for outside.
Yeah.
Okay. So this meeting was duly convened, and we went along to the meeting, and they all argued amongst themselves, and nobody would put their head above the parapet. And eventually they decided that Vehicle Certification Agency could do the crash testing, but BSI would have to oversee it. So I thought, well, since BSI have proven to be pretty negative, there's not a lot of point. Now, I've got a younger brother who's far more interesting than me, and when he was 20, he met a Swedish au pair girl. So he went over to Sweden to live in Sweden.
Okay, yeah.
And now he makes Swedish clogs at the factory, and he lives in Sweden, one side of the lake. And on the other side of the lake is where VTI are, the Swedish test house.
Okay,
and
yeah.
they actually wrote the rules.
Yeah.
And the father of child safety is a man called Thomas Turnbull. So I thought, you know, the other side of the lake is meant to be. So I phoned and said, can I speak to Thomas Turnbull, please? And if you spoke to an English company, there'd be a PA and a secretary or whatever, and Turnbull.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, hello, my name's Kevin Macliver. You won't have heard of me, but I've been working on a multiple child seat. And he said, I have heard of you, and all the European delegates are coming to Sweden in September to discuss your seat. So my Euro MP had done his stuff, he said, and I'd like to see you and your seat as soon as possible. So I thought, fine, good, okay. And I said, okay, have you got any dates? I don't really like parties, and my wife loves parties. Any party, she would have a party. And I had a significant birthday coming up, and my birthday is on the 19th of June. And Thomas Turnbull said, could you make the 19th of June? So I said, absolutely fine, I'll be there. So I loaded my car up with all the crashed seats we'd done to take it, and went to see Thomas Turnbull in Sweden. And we rented my brother had rented a Volvo V70, you know, the classical family car. And we put one of the Multimacs in that and drove. And they said, this is fantastic. We would like to work with you. And so that was the beginning of it.
Amazing. I won't be rude and ask how much money it took to get to that point, but I'm guessing it was a significant amount of money as well.
Well, I don't mind telling you, because a lot of my friends know I've been very poor for a very long time. And it actually cost £750,000 before we sold the first seat, actually, because the Swedes were very thorough. So instead of like BSI, having a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, 1-year-old, we had to do 11 crashes.
Right.
11 crashes.
Yeah.
Now, after every crash, they have to rebuild the dummy.
Yeah.
And each seat which we destroyed cost £1,000, and each crash cost over £1,000. So, and then, you know, you don't think about these things, but normal test houses test single child seats, so they'll have one of each dummy. So eventually we needed 4 12-year-old dummies. So when I went to Sweden the first time, they had to rent 2 in from another country. So it's quite arduous, this crash testing.
Yeah, and the thing is these seats are fantastic. I've got one myself, and you know, in our family wagon, in our X5. And I mean, we actually bought our X5 7-seater because we knew we were going to have 4 children. And we thought that's what we needed to get, you know, something big. And we struggled like anything to get even 3 across, you know, conventional child seats in there. And I said it in the second video on my channel on the X5. I said how frustrating it is. You can't even get 3 Isofix seats across the middle. And then when you do have somebody in the back, if you've got child seats in the middle row, you can't fold the seats down so they can get into the back. They've got to climb up through the boot, and then the boot is tiny. And if you've got 4 young children, you need a double buggy, bikes, everything like that. So we've now got this, and we've got the full size of the boot. And it's a lot easier getting them into the Multimac than it was with the arrangement as it was before. So I just think it's fantastic. But it's not just the 4 across that you do as well, is it? You've got the 3 across that you can fit in the back of cars, which you wouldn't conventionally think that you can, you know, have 3 across the back. I mean, what can you name a few cars that you've managed to get Multimacs in the back of that people were surprised that you could?
Well, the classical one, of course, is our Mini convertible.
Yes.
Over there.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's fun, actually, as a demonstration car. That's why we've got it as a demonstration car, because people come to us with a Range Rover and say, I can't get 3 child seats in the back, you know, have you got a solution? Could you possibly do it?
Yeah.
And you press the button and the hood goes down on the Mini to reveal 3 seats in the back of a Mini. So.
Yeah, and perfectly trimmed as well.
To match. We do that. We do that. It's quite fun. It is amazing how many men are rather in love with their cars and want it to match. And if I can tell you a few examples we've done. Yeah. One of the first ones was we got a call from a man in Holland who was a doctor, and he said, would a 3-seater child seat fit a Saab convertible? So we sent him a photograph of one in a Saab convertible, and he said, that's fantastic. I'm about to have my 3rd daughter, so could you trim one in pink? So we went to our trimmers, and they said, yeah, we've just done a Bentley for Paris Hilton. we got some leather. Send him this. So we sent the pink leather to Holland, and he called back and said, look, sorry to mess you about, but I'd like each of my girls to feel special. So I'd like a seat, which is basically pink, but I'd like a pink seat, a red seat, and a tan seat. Can you do that? And I said, yeah, we can do that. Do you want me to Photoshop it? And he said, no, I trust you, just do it. So we did it. And he subsequently called and said, it's my wife's birthday on the 20th of July. Could you deliver it to Amsterdam, this address, between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the afternoon? And so we arranged that. And he subsequently sent me an email and said, my wife says it's the best present she's ever had.
Oh, incredible. That's fantastic. It's funny, actually. I just reviewed my first Saab on the DadCars channel yesterday, actually, and I was rather impressed.
Yeah.
But so I'm guessing as well that you're a car enthusiast, right? What car did you have when you had your 4 young children?
Well, funnily enough, I had a couple of Rover SD1s, if you remember. And then the third one I had wasn't as quick as the previous ones. And I had my own business doing environmental engineering, and I was a bachelor. And the story will evolve in a little while. So I went to see John Eales, who you may or may not have heard of in Coventry, who used to tune all the V8s.
Okay, yeah.
For racing Morgans, etc. And I said, this car's not very fast. Could you tune it? And he said, you don't want to bother tuning it. You want to put a 3.9 lump in it. So I said, okay, can I have a go in one? And he said, no, I've got a 4.2 you can have a go in. We build the 4.2 engines for Jaguar Land Rover for the Paris-Dakar Range Rovers.
Yeah.
So I got one in my car. So he took me around the Coventry Ring Road at unmentionable speeds. I said, I want one. So, yeah. He was a bit surprised, but as my car was nearly new, I bought an old block for him to build. So he built this 4.2 engine for me. And then I had Jaguar XJS brakes put on it. And the guys at Lister Jaguar, which was reformed down the road in Birmingham, they fitted the brakes for me. And then I went to Coney and they built suspension for me. So I had this very nice car. And John Eales subsequently asked me if he could borrow it back, and a couple of magazines road tested it, and one of the headings was "So Macho," and the guy said every time I took it back to John Eales, I got in it again to go for another ride. So it was a very, very nice car, and I was stopped by police in it once because I had a little badge on the back that said Rover 5000 SE, and these police. I was driving back from London, and on the Coventry Road, this policeman was following me, and then suddenly overtook me and put his blue lights on. And so I stopped, and he said, sorry to stop you, sir, but what is a Rover 5000 SE? And I said, well, it's a bit like yours. It's got a bigger engine. And he said, well, just a bigger engine? No, it's got big brakes as well. And he said, do you want to swap? So I said, well, yeah, I've never driven a police car. I said, no, son, you can't drive our car. We'll drive yours. You'll be a passenger in ours. So I said, okay, fine. And then I had a race.
Oh, wow.
Shouldn't have done this, really. And my car just rocketed away. It must look quite exciting from the outside. Anyway, he then stopped so his mate could swap. And he had to go in it. And he said, you know, watch him. He teaches anti-terrorist driving. He'll probably go. Anyway, so it was quite good fun. And I eventually did 247,000 miles in that car in 7 years. You know, Rovers are meant to be fragile. So, and that's the car we first had kids in, because I got married soon after I had that. And then we had some kids. That's right. When we had our first child, I bought a Mercedes estate for Kathy. And so we had that. And then the Rover, 247,000 miles, I wanted another car. I used to do a lot of miles, and I figured I needed a V8. Back in the day, there were very few V8s. BMW hadn't started making a V8. And the only reasonable V8 was a Mercedes V8. So I thought, oh, I'll get a 500 SE, which is a bit stupid because it's a bit big. Then I thought, no, I'll get a coupe, because we've got the estate car, so I don't need.
Yeah.
So I got a 560. SEC, and it's up there, and I've had it for 29 years.
Yeah, nice. See, that is the whole DadCars ethos, really. If you've kind of got, you know, like I've got the X5, the family wagon, and then it opens things up for you to get the most exciting thing you can, that you can just about get some children in.
We then had, eventually had our fourth child, and we had a couple of seven-seaters. I think the Mercedes estate had seats in the back. And then I had this thought, it's not convenient, as you have explained. Yeah. No luggage space, you've got a child in the back, if it's in distress, you can't get to them. So I figured that any back seat that would take 3 rugby players should take 4 kids. I consequently made the Multimac. And at that time, I thought I needed a completely flat back seat for the thing to sit on. And my parents lived in a village with 36 houses, and 4 of the families had G-Wagons. So we bought a G-Wagon and the first Multimac, which, I don't know if you can see it up here, this Multimac.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, that's the OG? That's the original?
The original one.
Oh, wow.
So that went in our original G-Wagon. And interestingly, we had au pairs when we had 4 kids. And Catherine's Mercedes estate we gave to the au pair. Our first au pair girl was a German, Claudia Woppler from Dusseldorf. She was into cars. And we used to get so many phone calls from the school saying, "Can you tell your au pair not to drive so fast?" And Claudia then joined the police, and she now drives a Porsche and has a gun and is in the anti-terrorist squad. And she started off carting our children around.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic.
So there we are. So yeah, G-Wagon.
The G-Wagon, you're a big fan of the G-Wagon.
Big fan of the G-Wagon. And so, sorry to butt in here, but the first G-Wagons didn't have anti-lock brakes. So that was our first G-Wagon. So after a couple of years, we bought another one, and the kids have got a bit bigger. So the present G-Wagon, which is there, which we've had for 25 years, was red with grey trim. So that seat went in the G-Wagon.
Oh, brilliant. You've had the G-Wagon since before they were really cool and fashionable to have, right? Yeah, because I mean, they're crazy things now. Some of the specs that you can get them in with the engines and things like that, and the cost of them. But yeah, have you got any particular memories that spring to mind of you using exciting cars, G-Wagons or anything else with your children? Is there anything spring to mind?
Well, when I had the first 2 children, they used to scream in the Rover because it was very fast. Tell their children about that. The G-Wagon, I remember we went up to the Lake District, and they were terrified because it was quite arduous there. I've got 4 children, as you know. So Guy, the oldest, he did a graduate apprenticeship with Jaguar Land Rover. He then went to San Francisco to work with Lucid, and as you probably know, Lucid Air is the most sophisticated electric car.
Yes.
And they have engaged the Stig, the original Stig, Ben Collins, as their demonstration driver. He was at Goodwood last year and got the fastest production time of the day, astonishingly, in a 5-seater car.
Yeah.
So Guy's very much a car person. And then Camilla, again, went to Jaguar Land Rover, and she was in events marketing, and she's now with the Formula E team.
Oh, wow, okay.
So she does all the organisation of the Formula E team. So 10 days ago, she was in Mexico for the first race. She's about to go to Saudi Arabia, having just spent this intermediate weekend in Barcelona with the 2 sisters on a party day. Minty is a petrol head. Minty, as you know, she said she'd like a Porsche, and Minty's always done things before all the other children. And I said to her, look, well, if you move back home, instead of paying all that rent on a flat, I'm sure you could have a Porsche in a couple of years. So she got a Boxster S, and she's done a few trips, Stelvio Pass and others she enjoys. It's funny, because although I'm a happily married family man, I do like being on my own. And
okay, yeah.
And I'd be quite happy just to drive for a week on my own.
Yeah.
And my father was like that as well, and my brother, and so is Minty. At an early stage, and we were here, she wanted to drive and see some old au pairs who we all keep in touch with. So I drove with her in the Saab to Switzerland. We went to the Porsche Museum in Germany, then drove on to Switzerland. She then, where we had an old au pair living, she then took me to the airport and stayed there for 10 days. So she was in Switzerland, then she went to Prague to meet another au pair, and then drove back, all on her own. So
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it's funny. Obviously, I really love using exciting cars with my children, and for me, I get a massive buzz out of having at least one of them with me. But there's a lot of people that, if they've got 3 or more children, they probably use like their cars as kind of like a nice thing to have a bit of escapism, you know, a bit of time away. You know, I suppose I use fitness for that, but then I like to sort of spend the time with the children in the cars as well, just making the memories. But
in the early days of Multimac, you know, it's quite expensive and people hadn't seen one. And they wanted to see one before they bought one. And we used to spend every weekend doing demos. So we'd be down to London, see 6 or 7 families and whatever. And we were doing 50,000 miles a year. And Minty was doing that as well.
yeah, wow.
Just demonstrating seats.
Yeah, no, incredible. Is there any other like dream bucket list cars for you now, or have you always sort of had what you wanted, or is there still something that...
I feel very sorry for Minty and people of this generation because everything is monitored, there are speed cameras, etc. And when I was young, all you had to do was to keep an eye open for, you know, if you couldn't see a policeman, you could go as fast as you like. It may sound irresponsible now, but there were far less cars on the road. You know, I've done 250,000 miles in that coupe, and I've driven in Germany, and I've followed 911 turbos down the autobahn. 155 on the limit, and that's great, and you just can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why track days, I'm sure, have come up, and Minty's done 2 or 3 Porsche experience days with her own car. In fact, we were there a couple of weeks ago. She was in a 911, and I took my Cayenne, and it was just astonishing what a Cayenne can do. And particularly astonishing, we've always had winter tyres. There's a load up there. Every car we've got's got 2 sets of wheels. We went on the skid pan with winter tyres in the Cayenne, and it just would not move. And cars are we're doing this. I knew winter tyres were excellent in snow and ice and better at wet grip, but to actually go on a flooded skid pan and do the slalom like that, it's just astonishing.
That's the thing with these modern SUVs, you know, super SUVs really, you know, like the Cayenne and I mean everyone, even Ferrari, although you're not allowed to call it an SUV, are you?
Yeah, no,
even
indeed.
they've made one
Chris
now.
sang, that's right.
Yes. That's it. But they are just incredible because they're so usable, you know. Whereas like my car, rear wheel drive, as soon as it's sort of a bit icy and sloshy or wet, the rear wheels just spin. Whereas in these super SUVs, it's very usable, isn't it, under all conditions?
Absolutely. Well, when I mentioned my Rover that had the big engine in it, so John Eales borrowed it back a couple of times for motor journalists, and when he borrowed it back, he would lend me his 4.2 Dakar Range Rover, which was like they used on the Dakar Rally.
Yeah.
And so this was 35 years ago. So there's a lot of fast SUVs now, but there weren't then. And this was, the startling factor on it was just phenomenal. You'd come behind someone and...
I always think that it's even they feel even faster. Maybe it's because of the size and the weight and the perception of them. When they do really go, it kind of hits even more so than if it's a little 2-seater mid-engine thing, I think. But you're enjoying the Cayenne. How long have you had that for?
Well, it's been embarrassing that I've had it for 3.5 years now. I've only done 10,000 miles in it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And the reason we bought it originally was, I don't know if you've seen it's the tow car, the ultimate tow car in the Guinness Book of Records. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't, no.
You can see it pulling an Airbus.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A 280-ton Airbus. And it actually looks like an ant pulling a loaf of bread.
Wow.
It's just quite astonishing. We've got fitting agents all around Britain who can fit the tether straps for your Multimac. And we sell 40% overseas.
Okay.
And we don't have any, we've got a fitting agent in Switzerland, that's all. Interestingly, if you buy one in France or Belgium or Holland or Germany for your BMW and take it to your BMW dealer, he'll fit it for you.
Oh, okay.
In England, they won't. They just will not touch it. It's just like this.
Yeah.
No one would touch a child seat at all. Anyway, we figured that we needed to set up fitting agents around Europe. So we thought that what we'd do, and maybe some sales agents as well, so to we obviously have to impress them. So you know what a racing car trailer looks like a torpedo.
Yeah.
So we figured we'd get one of those and the Cayenne would have a black Multimac in standard finish in it, 4-seater. And in the trailer, we'd have the Mini with the bespoke leather. And we'd have some of this sales stuff as well in the trailer. So we would drive to a potential fitting agent, disconnect the Cayenne, take the Mini out the back. So we've got 2 demo cars there and big barn doors on the trailer. You have a showroom. So it would be the perfect way, really, demonstration device. And we were about to order the trailer from PRG, and then COVID struck.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah.
So we'd bought the Cayenne, we were about to buy the trailer, then COVID struck. And so we just did nothing for 2.5 years. And I don't know why we're still in that limbo, but we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I can't believe that 2020 is... wow, we're in 2023 now.
Yeah.
That 2020 and 2021 were kind of like a horrible limbo period where it kind of felt like we never got going, really, wasn't it?
Indeed,
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I now that we've got the Multimac, it's definitely opened things up for me. When we come to replace the X5, I won't be looking for a 7-seater. Right. You know, I'll be looking for something that can fit one comfortably, fit a 4-cross comfortably, and it's got a good sized boot. But there's so much more to choose from there now, isn't there? Whereas before, when I thought I needed a 7-seater, you know, I was restricted. You know, a Range Rover Sport or an X5, or the Audi Q7, I think, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. Well, interestingly, we fitted a 4-seater Multimac to one of the first Porsche Taycans in Britain.
Yes, he did. So I did a DadCars review of a Porsche Taycan Turbo S. And I measured the back seat and said, I think in theory you could. That video went out, and then one of my subscribers commented saying, I've got a Multimac in the back of my Taycan, so it does fit. So yeah. I mean, talk about if you 4 children in the most exciting car possible. You know, that is, and the boot's a good size as well, because I got stuck in the back of that boot for 28 minutes during that video.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was rather embarrassing. But yeah, so it's a good sized boot. Obviously, they do the Cross Turismo as well, don't they?
They do. That's very nice.
So, but yeah, that's just this is what I mean. This wonderful thing that you've created here really opens up a world of possibilities for parents, doesn't it? Petrolhead parents. I mean, even just generally, you know, people who thought that they would have to. Another child's coming along, perhaps unexpectedly, or twins are coming along when they're expecting one, and then the first thing they'll think of is, oh my goodness, we've got to sell the car and get a bigger car. That's a big thing for people, isn't it?
It is very much so. It is very much so. And in fact, there's a lot of talk at the moment about population declining, and there aren't enough people to fill the jobs, to earn the money, to pay for the pensioners, etc.
Yeah.
And apparently one of the main reasons people give for not having more children is I need a bigger car.
I don't want a people carrier.
Yeah,
I don't want to get an MPV.
We could stop all that, couldn't we?
Yeah. Elon Musk always talks about population decline, actually.
Yes, indeed. Well, he had twins and triplets, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's why his first cars were all 7-seaters.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but well, me and you have done our best, haven't we, to try and improve the numbers.
Absolutely so. What is perhaps interesting to talk about is the complete lack of interest by the motor industry.
The lack of interest in
Multimacs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah. Have you? So what manufacturers?
Well, I can't tell you the names because we've signed confidential agreement. But out of interest, when we first launched the Multimac, we got a call from one of the big German car companies, the safety department, the director of safety. He said, we've seen this, we're very interested in this, can you come and show us? So we went and showed them in the good old Volvo. We had a Volvo V70 as a demonstration car, as your archetypal family car, and a trailer on the back with one of every size in. They asked if they could have some Multimacs to crash in real cars, which was amazing. Yeah. So they did real cars, all instrumented, and the guy was calling me saying, we've just had side impact, cannot believe it just didn't move. It's fantastic. And I was getting all these reports back, and eventually he said, no, we're completely happy with this. We're going to pass it on to commercial department. I then heard nothing, and I chased him a couple of weeks later, and he said, they say child seats aren't sexy. They're not interested. Child seats aren't sexy. Yeah. We don't want to spoil the image of our cars.
Yeah.
We had another call from another company who said, we have just removed some cars from our range, the company this, and we realise that we can only get 2 child seats in any of our cars. And we're losing market share, obviously, because we used to have a car that would take more than 7-seater. So are you interested in working with an OEM? So we said yes, of course, no problem. So we drove to Europe and showed them, and they were pretty impressed. And we showed them a 4-seater in their smallest car, which was quite astonishing. And they said, okay, well, you have to meet commercial. We have to meet the commercial people. So we had a meeting with the commercial people. And they said, we understand these guys are very impressed, so we've just got to agree some terms. And we said, yeah, okay. And they said, now we mark up all our accessories by 350%. And I said, well, we sell direct to the customer. We don't have a margin for retail.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way you're going to sell a Multimac for £7,000.
Yeah.
And we're not going to sell it to you for £350. So you can't look at it like that. You have said that you're losing business. So you presumably make a profit on each car. So you should regard the Multimac as a catalyst to sell a car you wouldn't otherwise sell. No, we can't work like that.
Oh, okay.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So this is another manufacturer for whom a lot of their customers buy Multimacs. So we thought it'd be interesting to have a tie-up, you know, for us to expand really, and also help us to get into America or Australia. If the car is already being sold with a Multimac in Europe, then it would help open the way for us to do the crash testing over there. They're very impressed with it all. And then their concern was that they get a 5-star NCAP rating at the moment. And NCAP rating, as you know, is based on how hurt the driver is in a crash, how hurt Granny is in a crash, how hurt the kids are, and how hurt pedestrians are. And they said, our concern is that if NCAP come and do a crash test with your seat in the back, and we only get 4 stars for that, it's going to wreck our image. So we will have to, throw 3 vehicles at the wall to prove it to ourselves before we do it.
Yeah.
And you'll have to pay for that.
Right, okay. Yeah.
One very sweet moment happened about a month ago. Another of the big car manufacturers in Europe, for whom their customers buy a lot of Multimacs, we wrote to them and they said, not interested, not interested, not interested. Their marketing director has retired now, and he's just called me because his daughter has a child and is expecting twins.
Oh, wow.
One of these seats that he wasn't interested in corporately 15 years ago, he desperately needs one.
Yeah, God, yeah.
So these guys, I mean, 1 in 7 families have more than 2 children. So it's quite a big market, you know. And but men, when they go to work, children don't exist.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, I guess that's the strange thing with me and my channel, really, is that I am utterly obsessed with child seats and getting child seats into interesting cars and finding solutions. And I mean, literally the quest that I'm on at the moment is to find the most exciting car to replace my Aston Martin DB9. Because I've got 4 children, I want the ability to take all 4 out. Going back to what I was saying earlier on, I actually find it a bit of a buzz just going out for the day with all my children. So yeah, I'm going to try and find the most exciting 2+2 with a flat rear bench. Obviously, a lot of them have got transmission tunnels. All 911s are out of the question, unfortunately. And yeah, try to fit one of these 3 across in the back and then have my eldest in the passenger seat in a booster seat. So yeah, I'm excited. Whatever it is that I do buy, I'll have to make sure the Multimac fits in, and then I'll bring that car up here, and then we'll have to do another video around fitting the Multimac in it, I think.
Okay, well, that would be a pleasure.
That would be great. So yeah, look, the crash testing then, all of you were saying about earlier on, all that money that was spent in doing the crash testing. I mean, other than I've seen quite a lot of videos on YouTube that look quite horrific of, you know, some horrible seat that someone's bought from overseas and then the dummy comes flying out of it and stuff like that. But what is the crash testing process? You know, could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, fundamentally, you have children. Well, in our case, children, normal child in a child seat, and it goes on rails down a track and then stops, and it stops and generates 30G. which is quite interesting because when they test adult seatbelts, they only generate 20G.
Oh, okay.
Children generate 30G. And the dummy's head is allowed to move 550 millimetres, which isn't a tremendous amount, and the chest decelerations have to be below 55G. So when we first started crash testing in Sweden, we were getting head displacements of 350 and 400 millimetres, which is fantastic, and the G forces around about 50. And the Swedes said to us, look, it's decelerations that kill, not. So it will be better if you soften the seat up so that you use more of the 550 millimetres but got lower chest decelerations. And so we did that. It's quite interesting how we tuned the legs actually to do that. And we get G forces of about 30G.
Wow, okay.
And we've got all our crash test data, but no one else publishes it. We, having spent, I think I told you, £750,000 and then launched this thing just when we had a bit of a, what do I call crisis? Depression, 2008. Well,
Yeah, the recession.
the
Credit crunch. When all the
credit crunch.
Yeah.
So, you know, bankers weren't interested, and it was quite astonishing. For example, I don't know whether I'm allowed to say this, but there are local quasi-governmental things that give grants or loans or whatever. So we applied to one of those, and we were turned down, but we could have this minimal £15,000 loan at about 12% interest.
Oh, blimey, okay.
And in order, because it's a charity, you had to join the club, so you had to become in the club to earn the money. And so you got the newsletter. And so we'd just been told we couldn't have a proper loan, but we could have £15,000. And the first newsletter had this tattoo parlour in Solihull was very successful, so now they're opening one in Sutton Coldfield and they've been given £100,000.
Oh, wow, okay,
But something like a child seat, safety, not interested.
Yeah.
And the same was true with banks. If I said I want to open a coffee shop, there is a business model for a coffee shop. So the very fact that there's a business model means there's lots of competition. So you'll be number 4 coffee shop in the high street, but yes, you can have some money.
Yeah.
But something completely innovative, child seats, dangerous, not interested.
That's it, and kind of like breaking through. Like there's a status quo already. There's an industry there. And they've got the way that they're doing it. They're happy.
Yeah.
But anything innovative that's going to break through and kind of essentially revolutionise all of that.
Yeah.
They're resistant to it.
Yeah.
And put these financial barriers in place, maybe, and particularly for somebody like yourself. Just you're not a huge company. You're
absolutely.
not like you're trying to do it yourself.
Absolutely.
I find it just really inspirational, and it's funny. I've always, particularly now, obviously, but I've always just been fascinated by child seats in unconventional cars and stuff like that. So yeah, people have found it. It makes sense now that I've got the channel, but before I'm like, wow, you've got that in the back of a 911. Okay, how old are they? And like getting involved and talking and finding out about all of that. Just while I remember, you were saying earlier on about the crash testing. Now I remember seeing some YouTube videos of crash tests, and I'm thinking of it right now because it's that time of year where it's quite cold, and obviously the temptation is when you're bundling all the children into the car, is they're crying, they're all upset, and they're wrapped up warm, and the car's cold, and so sometimes people put them in the car with the coats on. Oh, I'm just popping around the corner, it'll be okay, and then they strap them in. But I've seen these videos where they do the crash test dummies where they've got a coat on in the car, it seems tight enough, and then the child comes flying out of the seat. You've got a solution for that as well, haven't you? Do you want to talk a little bit about that just quickly?
Yeah. It is well known, and lots of forums say you must never put your child in a car seat in a puffy jacket, winter coat, and they never come up with any solution. And the reality is, if you've got the parent coming out of the house with 2 children, the car's been out all night, it's got ice on it, you're not going to put your children in there, take their coats off and defrost the windscreen, whatever. So I actually designed a child seat coat and patented it. And then while the patent was kind of progressing, I did a bit of research and found there was a company in America already making these, slightly different from ours, but anyway. And so we called them, and they were quite intrigued that a car seat company was interested in this, because normally they're selling to clothes shops.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And we became the English agents for that. So the road coat. And the way it works, if you look on our website, you'll see how it works. But basically, if you put the harness on a child in a typical jacket,
yeah,
and then you undo the harness, ask the child to take the coat off and get back in again and do the harness up in the same position, you'll find there's so much slack there, they can just fly out. So the jacket we sell, the road coat, actually has, you can unzip it, so all the puffy bits here, and the harness goes directly over the body, and then you zip the coat back up again. So it's quite simple. And the collar has got Velcro, so it can open up the 3 ways, so the harness can go like within the collar rather than over the collar.
Yeah.
And that's there's crash test data on that. You can see the videos. It's a 100% solution.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant idea. I want to say a massive thank you from all the parents out there who are petrol heads, all the dads out there who, you know, it really does open up a world of possibilities. And I mean, I'm going to be, with 4 children, with the DadCars channel, I'm going to be showing just how usable cars are going to be now because of these seats. But even more generally, though, you know, even people who haven't got loads of money and can afford to get them all, each seat intricately sort of matched in with the car and stuff like that. You know, just some parents at the other end of the scale as well who just can't afford to upgrade their car, but they've got another child on the way. This solution is a fantastic solution, really, really safe, as we've heard today. And it's going to be cheaper for them to buy one of these than it would be to trade in their car and get a bigger one. Definitely, you know, by the time the dealer's made their little markup on that transaction, that's probably more than the cost of a seat anyway. So, look, I just want to say a massive thank you.
Well, thank you.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant what you've done, and to push through all of those barriers, I just respect it so much. I really do. And yeah, look, I'll put a link in the description to the Multimac website. And yeah, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the DadCars channel for more parent-focused automotive content. I'll put links in the description below for the Multimac website along with their socials. Like this video, comment below, let us know your thoughts, and I'll see you on the next one.